We've confirmed the camera started. Oh, I gotta check the audio to make sure the audio's. Every time I make a mistake.
Good thing to check.
Yeah. All right. That's fun. All right. So
That's good.
I got some questions for you. I wrote them all down somewhere in here. Aha. The first question is always, who are you and where are you and what kind of art do you do?
My name is Jim Ford, and I'm a type designer by day, and by night I paint and make collage art mostly.
Okay, and that's a little bit of what we have here, right?
Yeah, you can see this. This year I'm working a little more large scale.
If there's a person watching who hasn't been introduced to collage before, how would you describe it?
Repurposing images, I guess. Somebody actually kind of brilliantly conveyed this to me yesterday. They said they really liked how you use images that are not relevant to the picture to create another image.
Oh.
So you're using a lot of different images to create a new image, basically. And so the images that you see in it actually kind of, their meaning sometimes disappears or recedes. And sometimes they have a very specific meaning for what the image is and why it's there.
Do you think that there's a general rule of thumb to know the difference, or is it about context?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. I think that's part of the fun of art in general, is that you can look at it and get your own interpretation of it to see what
well, that's what I'm interested in. I really don't like talking about art, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because part of the whole thing that makes me want to do art is that it's a way for me to start a conversation with people. And I don't think that artists are necessarily totally involved in the conversation, although it may start something. You're not always present, so I think art kind of takes on its own life once it leaves the studio.
And you said you're a typeface designer?
Yep.
And is that your primary form of art?
I wouldn't say that right now, but I do have about 10-15 years experience. So.
Oh yeah, that's serious.
So yeah, it's definitely something I'm good at, but this is my future.
Yeah. How does the typeface design influence anything else that you do?
Well, it influences painting a lot, and I kind of go back and forth from being, I guess, very loose and casual about how I approach painting, and then there's times when I really want to cut shapes because I work in black and white all day.
Okay.
When I'm drawing letters, so it does somehow all these things connect. I can never connect the dots all at once.
Yeah. And you said that some parts of the art are loose.
Right.
And my interpretation of that is the painting part.
Yeah.
And then the cut shapes, the specific part, maybe is the collage with that.
They both contradict each other. I kind of aim to blur the lines between them so that you can't tell what's collage and what's painting. Mm-hmm. So they're often switching places in hierarchy, and just what you see. I mean, some things it's really hard to tell whether it's collage or painting, or sometimes it's a collage with paint.
Uh-huh.
So what do you call that?
Yeah.
Is it a painting or is it a collage?
Yeah, and that's those blurred lines of people's interpretations, right? Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I've told other people I grew up without much appreciation for fine art.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It's funny, but I grew up drawing and things like that.
Sure.
And, I really didn't go abstract till I was well into my 20s.
Okay.
But I grew up very kind of blue collar,
and
in the Midwest, and being in the Midwest, that does mean something, especially when it comes to art.
Sometimes I think it's just like me and my family, because my memory is like, why would we buy that? Like, what does it do?
Right.
It doesn't help us with whatever, it doesn't mow the lawn faster, it doesn't paint the house faster.
Yep.
Like, why would I have that there?
That's one of the biggest challenges, I think, in pursuing art as like a business is that it's a luxury item. I mean, people don't need art. They do.
They just don't
know it.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. And then when people find out about it, and then they realize, oh, I do need it. There's like a light bulb. There's an aha. There's people going, oh, like when I met my wife, I was introduced to a lot of fine art and appreciation for that fine art, and I had to go from but why would you even care outside of like going to a museum and going, oh, that's nice, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a phallic symbol. Oh, ha 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 ha. And then you go home and eat dinner with your blank walls. But like from being introduced into a different way of looking at it, and now that we're married and together and have a house with a lot of art on the wall, I'm like beginning that process of going, but now I want something on the wall that I can look at and interpret differently every day.
Yeah.
And so like I've gone through this change, and I wonder about all the other people who haven't gone through that change yet.
There is something, I think, special about living with art and having it in your space and being able to appreciate it and think about it every day or stare at it or whatever. But I think a lot of people don't have that experience. They don't know what it's like yet, or they can't afford it or whatever. But I think it goes back to, one of the hard things about being an artist in the Midwest is that the Midwest has very strong values, and people generally, they work really hard for their income. So most of us would rather eat or drink our paycheck, or escape to some paradise than spend it on a luxury like art. Yeah. So it's very hard to get people to come over and see the value in it.
Yeah.
Especially in this part of the world.
Have you had any success in doing that?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, like I said, one thing that I've learned from trying to sell art or design is that the people that I know aren't necessarily the market, and I don't necessarily know the people who are. So I kind of have to look outward, or look beyond the local region. But even though I'm still trying to get people to come over to art here, but I don't expect it from everyone.
Yeah, and one of the challenges I think a lot of people have is what do you do? So you have art and you have a will to share it.
Yeah.
It's like what's the daily thing that you can do? And in this world we live in right now, a lot of people are on Instagram, sharing on Instagram.
Right.
A lot of people are on Facebook, sharing on Facebook. Have you had any ways that have stood out that worked well for you?
Well, I use Instagram a lot. That's been a good way to kind of get out of my circle of people. And Facebook's been a little bit the opposite. It was really good during the Obama years, but we're in a climate that makes it a little bit harder, I think.
Just with some of the conversations that are happening on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, when Obama was in office, people were happy with it. People were bored. They were looking at art.
Okay, yeah.
Now they have way too much to talk about.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
So I think that that plays into things. It also plays into the opportunities that are available in the art world as far as shows and exhibitions. There's definitely some political movements going on right now.
Yeah, I wonder if people escape into Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like, nope. I'm gonna look at some pretty things.
Looking at pictures, yeah.
Yeah, bunny
Pictures
rabbits and puppies. Yeah. Yeah. What's the best part of what you do?
I guess. All my passions are kind of tangled up in this. Art or music, type. They all kind of go into this. So it's all connected somehow, and I'm still trying to find my place in between everything. The best thing, though, I guess, at this point is, I guess, feeling like I'm the only person in the world that's doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm not sure where to run with that.
I imagine that at the intersection of all these things is you.
Right.
Yeah, and being that no one else has had your experience.
Yeah.
And certainly not like you have. Do you think that the output has to be unique? It has to be you. It has to be this cross section of all these things that you're doing.
Well, yeah, and I guess I feel a lot of like self-imposed pressure, but also pressure outwards to to keep making good work and stuff. But I mean, actually, that's a burden because to have those expectations on yourself, because all artists actually make mistakes and fail and make shitty work that they don't like sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest failure an artist can do is? Is that a sentence? What do you think the biggest failure could be?
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, you just get back to me. Send me an email once it hits you.
Sure.
You said you do a lot of processing overnight.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we should do this interview at 3 a.m.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you might get totally different answers late at night.
Oh, that's fun.
So there's a lot going on in the art world. And, as soon as you as soon as you cross over from art being your hobby to art being your business, you got to get out there and you got to look at it all. And you got to meet people, and you have to be open. Jeff Koons famously said that the first part of art is self-acceptance. And once you accept yourself, then you're ready for the higher cause, which is acceptance of others.
Yeah. Both of those really difficult.
That always
artist side, right? Like artist side, it's hard for us to accept ourselves. We're always saying, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or gosh, I'm not a success until this happens, or I'm a failure.
Right.
And that's a mountain to overcome. And even as you're climbing that mountain, which I don't know if any of us ever get to the top of, to start sharing that with other people, that grace in a way, right? To share that grace with other people. That's another mountain to climb.
Yeah, and that can be very conflicting. I mean, as soon as you start going out there, okay, I got to think about where I'm going to put this art. One of the, I struggle with having a large inventory of it. I got storages all, in different places. So when I go out and think about, okay, where does this art belong? Like, where do I even start? Which piece do I start with? Or what style of work do I even go with? It's a big question, trying to get your art out there into the world.
A lot of the things that I've been doing, a lot of the questions I've been asking are around just that, how do you get your art out into the world, preferably into a buyer's hand, right?
Yeah.
Have you figured that out? It sounds like you're still kind of working through it.
It's a constant thing, trying to figure out, what's going to make it click, or where is the niche that your art appeals to. It's kind of a maddening thing, because there's never a straight answer for that.
Yeah, it seems like the answer's going to be different for everyone too.
Yeah, right.
Have you had any success on Instagram? Someone who's sending you a random DM saying, "Hey, that one."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have. I've had a lot of people ask about stuff like that, but going into it, usually people don't have the first idea of what art is, what the value of art is, or how it works, or what questions to ask. And it's tricky just putting myself out there, because it really, to start thinking like a business, like I need to sell this art, really takes me away from thinking like an artist.
Do you think that slows you down creating the art?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, last year I was preparing for a fair and a solo show, and that stopped me from art making for 6 months. So.
Wow.
I mean, these are like, for me, these are serious considerations because, the art is a train that has to keep going.
Yeah, there's momentum to it, right? Like it builds on itself.
Right, and if you lose the momentum, then it takes a long time to build it back up again.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of try and stay grounded and focused on what I'm making.
Yeah.
And a lot of the business questions are things that I'm trying to figure out. And I may know a little bit about it, but I still don't have the answers. But I think the other thing is, as far as putting it out there, I think it's important to have work in different price ranges or sizes, or what have you, because I don't know anybody that I can sell this to.
Yeah.
But something that's smaller that could fit in your apartment is obviously there's a lot more people that can afford that.
I think about how people go from like who I was and still am a little bit, of blank walls and just some family photos.
Yeah.
And to like the little piece that gets them started, it gets them thinking, like that gets them hooked to bring them around to whatever's next. And I can imagine someone starting with a small little 4x4 and then an 8x8 and then 16x16 and then just slowly becoming one of those collectors.
Yeah.
Have you run across anyone like that?
Yeah, I've had some collectors that have bought things, and I thought that their first choice of something to buy for me was kind of strange.
Oh yeah?
But I have a lot of different kinds of art, and so it always surprises me what people gravitate to and what they actually want to buy when they have the chance.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes disheartening, but it's always appreciated.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have several different types of art.
Right.
And several different sizes if you're only in creating one type of art, to allow your art to appeal to as many people as possible, right? Because I think in the end it's a numbers game.
Yeah,
right? It's just
kind of. Yeah.
Enough people see it, enough people see it in person, enough people think about it.
Right.
And then maybe some buy it.
Yeah, the other thing I think is, I have two professions, and that sometimes works against me. I think you really have to be, it has to be your main thing. You have to be doing it. People have to know that this is how you make a living. To want to support.
Do you think just like hook them and then like I'm not going to eat this week unless you buy this thing?
No, I try not to put pressure on it. I don't expect people to buy all the time.
Yeah.
And that's part of what drives the prices and values of art, is that they don't sell every day. Mm-hmm. And you think about everything that's behind art, and this is what I thought we would talk a little bit about. But everything that goes into it, all the things that you have to do just to get it in front of people's faces.
Yeah.
Like there's a long process from starting a piece to getting it in front of people, and really, the best way to get it in front of people is in person. Mm-hmm. We can all post our photos on the internet, which is great, and that's worked for me and helped it at least get outside the doors, but when people get in front of it, they have a reaction that they don't seem to have online. It's like, it's real.
Yeah.
And it's not just from Photoshop or whatever.
How do you measure a piece's presence?
Yeah.
Right? Like just that presence of it existing in front of you,
Oh.
whether it's the light or what it is, right?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. It reminds me, there's a Gerhard Richter painting at Milwaukee Art Museum that I go back to visit every once in a while, because it has a very special power.
Yeah.
And I always think, when I'm looking at art, the strongest works, they almost repel you. And that's the feeling that I get from the Gerhard Richter painting that we have in our museum here. Is every time that I go to see it, it is so amazing and powerful and towering that I can't stand in front of it for more than 10 seconds.
Wow.
It pushes you away. I saw and a lot of artists that I kind of hold highly like that do the same thing. You know, you're waiting. You see these things in books, and you don't get a chance to see them in the flesh that often. But once you do, it's like personally I blush.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, when I see an artist that I really like, that's really kind of like important to me, and I get to see them for the first time, I start to blush because I feel like my secrets are out.
Yeah.
I feel like it's exposing me.
Yeah. You have a communion with the piece.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of that power or presence of art is kind of what I aim for, and that's the kind of work that I want to make.
When some of the pieces when they repel you, is it a walking away backwards repulsion, or is it like walking away and not looking, or is it walking away and looking over your shoulder?
It's kind of like I gotta move before somebody sees me dorking out.
It's so cool to have resonance with something.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how often in life do you run across something where you have that resonance, whether it's blushing or your heart like just starts thumping or whatever it is. And I've had that once or twice or three times. Sometimes I have that with food. You know, it's like so like whenever I come across that, I go, "Oh, this is special," and I think that I've experienced the same thing that you're describing. That being in front of a piece allows you to have that experience,
right?
And I rarely have that experience if I'm not physically present with it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a future for art sales on the internet?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going that way. I think a lot of people, especially younger generations, would prefer to buy that way.
Yeah.
And you know, it's easier, it's faster.
How do you think you share the presence with someone buying on the internet?
How do you share the presence? Well, I think it's always good to see things in context where you can get a sense of scale. Or on a wall. I mean, you take those things away and you're taking away the frame for the picture. And you know, space is always the frame for the picture, even if there's a frame on it.
Right. And by space, you mean the walls around it, the floor, the ceiling, the space that it takes up in its surroundings.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't even remember what my question was. And for most of these, we've covered, except for two questions as we close out here. What mindsets have you adopted that have worked for you?
That's interesting. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but I'm gonna take it.
Open-ended. Okay. I don't know what I mean by that.
For me, I've taken a mindset of, well, I mean, you can go out on the internet and you can read all the tips and all the things that they tell you to do to increase your Instagram followers and all that stuff. I'm kind of running the opposite way at this point, and I guess I'm very reserved about my art now. I kind of like to keep it behind the curtain until it's ready to be seen, and that's worked for me actually. So I don't think it works for everyone, but you know, being an introvert, it's certainly challenging to put myself out there to be the salesman and all that. I mean, one of the reasons I love art so much is that it gives me an outlet and a way to communicate with people, to relate to people, or to entertain them. And really, you know, I don't really see it as entertainment totally, but that's what all these things kind of mean to me. I mean, a lot of this goes back to, you know, I've always wanted to be an entertainer, whether it's playing in bands or inspiring designers with type design or making art. You know, I've always wanted to, you know, have a value that way, I guess. I always want to make people feel something.
That's awesome.
That's my that's kind of my motivation.
For the last question, really around a lot of people who might watch this interview, and they might be in a place where they haven't tried a lot of things yet. And maybe they're thinking about going to an art fair and applying for it for the first time, or they might be thinking about applying for like an art show at a museum or an arts organization. They might be thinking about being part of an arts organization.
I see.
They're at a place where they have a lot of dreams or hopes or wants, and they haven't taken the first step yet.
Okay.
And for somebody who's, it sounds like you've taken more than just the first step.
Yeah.
Right? You've gone a little bit further down that path. I'm curious if there's anything that that's worked well to share with somebody who might be letting fear get in the way, or might be letting those thoughts of, hey, maybe I'm not good enough, get in the way. If there's anything that's that served you well that you can share.
Well, I think confidence is everything in painting. You have to really believe in your art. You cannot base the value of your art on what other people think of it, or what other people say about it, whether it's good or bad. It's good because you say it's good, and that's how it works. And I think artists need to have that confidence, and they also need to have an artist statement and other little technical things that make actually putting your art into the world a lot easier. I mean, I've been doing this for years, and I felt lost for many of them, and things changed suddenly once I figured out what I was doing, why I was doing, and put it on paper. So having forms, having those things worked out, anywhere you apply to put your art, they're going to ask for an artist statement. So that was one action that that was worth getting help with, paying for a professional writing. It's like a thing that you need to have, and if you have a good idea of what you do, why you do it, and you have it accessible so that people can access that information, then it's much easier to put yourself out there. Like, having an artist statement kind of changed the game for me.
Interesting.
It's like all of a sudden I had a key.
Oh. And was that when what you said, things changed suddenly? Was that when you created the artist statement?
Things changed from a business perspective. My opportunities started happening. I started having sales, and people started to understand what the hell am I doing.
Oh, wow, no, that's a big thing.
But I think
was there a catalyst that kicked that off?
No, that was just something that I struggled with for years, was writing about art, and putting it into verbal terms, and finally, I put it together. But it wasn't like that was just writing an artist statement. I've never been able to write one that lasts more than a week before I change or contradict it or something like that. But this one took me like months to make these 3 paragraphs. But those 3 paragraphs were everything for me, because you didn't have that before, you can't even get started. You can't even get started on the process of going out into the world with your art.
That's great.
So like something very basic like that, I thought that was an action that was really worth something for me, even if people don't really read artist statements.
Yeah, but
some people want to.
But you went through the process, right? Like you went through that. Like you had to think about, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And why am I doing it? And what does this mean? Some words that other people can get what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And maybe that you internalized it when you had to create those words. Maybe that helped this way. Or do you think with the painting?
I think so. Yeah. It definitely gave me a sense of focus that this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm trying to do, and it's on the table. So it's not like a secret or a hidden thing. Like friends, I can send it to my friends and family, and they'll be, and most of them will learn something from reading it. And
it's a cool thing to do.
I think people these days they want to be told. They want to be told how to think. They want to be told how to look at things. You know, I look at people at a show. They go up and they look at art, and they don't look at the title or anything like that. Which titles are very important to me. They're like kind of like secret keys to the art.
A clue.
For me, they are. I mean, it's like you could stand back and look at this, but then you read the title that goes with it, and that's where you get the smirk, the smile, the oh, I see now.
Yeah.
But you gotta kind of like put those things together, and obviously, I don't have any control over that, which is cool. It's just always interesting to see how people react to art, and I've been told by family members that, you know, having an artist statement up on the wall makes all the difference. You know, they want to learn something. They want to get it. The thing that stops art conversations from happening, and which is probably why I don't like talking about art that much, is that most of us don't have a vocabulary, especially for abstract art. I mean, you don't know what to say. Plus, you know, if you're talking to an artist, it's something that's very like close to them and personal and deep, and so a lot of people are hesitant to have a conversation about art, but you know, you kind of have to give them the vocabulary, I think, or you know, frame it somehow so that it's understandable for people.
I think that's helpful for a lot of people who might be title skippers.
Yeah.
They just look at the piece and they're like, oh, that's neat, and they just kind of move on.
Yeah.
And hopefully it lands somewhere out there in the universe.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my vocabulary for art and what's in it grows with every artist I meet.
Right.
And it grows with every piece of art that I look at, and every one of those awesome experiences I have when I find something that really resonates.
Yeah.
Which is obviously few and far between. But I cherish those. I think those are great, and hopefully this video can do some of that too and help share that vocabulary.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add, or anything that?
Well, while we're on that,
oh yeah,
I have a little story that I'd like to tack onto that last.
Sure.
One of my most memorable art experiences, and there's only a few. There's only a handful that really stand out. Like, I mean, but I remember this from when I was 8 years old or something like that. My uncle would take me to the art museums. He kind of like exposed me to that stuff and a lot of cultural things. But you know, at the time I was a kid who drew pictures and cartoons and things like that and fun stuff, and we didn't really, you know, when we went to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, we really didn't have the vocabulary for a lot of the stuff, and we looked at it like anybody on the street, like, what's that? I could do that. That's easy. But the thing is with art is like, yeah, you can do it, but you didn't. Somebody else did it first. So you can't do it again.
Yeah.
But one of the most memorable pieces that I've ever seen was the white-on-white paintings. I'm not even sure whose they were. They might have been Rauschenberg's. They might have been somebody else's white-on-white paintings. But they're just white paint on white canvas. So obviously, at the time when I was a kid, me and my uncle joked about it. It was ridiculous. And that was the only way we could respond to it. But as I grew up and learned things about design and art, I started to understand the conceptual value of that piece and what it is, and it's something like I keep going back to that. I keep doing homages to that art experience. Like it never goes away. White on white, black on black. Like these are not typical things for me, but I do kind of pay tribute to like those art experiences when I can.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because that's like back to what we started with there's like this history of art that's been marching away for all of time, and to interpret some of that and then internalize it and then create something hopefully new in that spectrum. That's a really special place to be. And it's not that only special people can do that. Like, anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Anyone can take an idea and think about it and then interpret it and then share that idea with anyone, whether
Right.
it's smaller, whether the audience is small or large.
Right.
And that's a really cool way to look at, I guess, the creation of new art in the bigger picture.
Right. Yeah. And it's it's a lot more. I think art is a lot more accessible for artists today. I mean, everybody has talents and things that they like to do or make, and now you don't have to kind of go around the gatekeepers or like they. It's more open. You can make your work and post it on the internet almost immediately. So things move fast these days.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a better I think an opportunity for more artists to get involved and do something, and there's a better I don't know if the chances are better or worse, but certainly there's nothing stopping people from making things and sharing them these days.
That's like the perfect ending. I couldn't have written that better. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a conversational format.
Yeah,
As you see, we just kind of like go here and there, and
Yeah.
so we end up in weird places sometimes. Especially, it's so awkward when you meet new people. It's like, I didn't think we'd end up there, but now we're friends.